What's up, everybody? Thralls Monday here once again. I'm Necrotic, and I have yet another collection update for you. Got a bunch of stuff in here. Got some splits. Speaking of splits, we got stuff from Head Split. Finally get a chance to go over our last bundle from them. Also got some stuff from a band that actually was cool enough to send me some of their work. A fair amount of 2022 releases, the stuff that I got in the Metalhead box, and just whatever else I fucking picked up. So there's a lot of stuff being covered in this one. So yeah, as pretty much par for the course right now, this is another big stack. So let's get into it. The Mars Volta, self-titled. This is the latest album from this Texas-based prog rock act. It's their first album in 10 years after Nocturnicate. I've been a fan of this band since, God, probably Delouse in the Comatarium. I just picked it up on a whim. I heard a lot of buzz about it. It was awesome. I've been picking up Mars Volta albums ever since. And when I saw this was coming out, which was kind of a surprise, I decided, well, of course I'm going to pick it up. And, this doesn't really sound that much like the Mars Volta. This is very different. Kinda not very proggy. In fact, this is more like salsa rhythms, softer melodies, very poppy, very vocally driven. There are some elements that you would hear in Mars Volta albums, but very much dialed down. I don't think this really gets very proggy at all. In fact, halfway through this, I kept looking at my computer screen going, seriously, what the fuck? Like, I don't know if the gold cover here is essentially a reference to AM Gold, but this is all very soft rock, very poppy. I think I've already said that. This isn't very good. At best, I would say this sounds kind of like proggy Miami Sound Machine or proggy Air Supply. I don't know what was going on when they decided to come back, but clearly they kind of chose to go for a more poppy sound and sort of abandon all their roots and pretty much everything that made them really cool, because again, I really like this band. I love a lot of their past works. Francis the Mute, I think, is fucking exceptional as hell too. I mean, I can pretty much go through all of them. I really like all their albums, except for this one. This feels like a collection of B-sides and half songs, because these songs are very short for the most part, that maybe just would have fit as like transitional tracks between bigger, like lavish songs that they would do in previous albums, but they just showed up here in a giant collection of songs. I'll be honest, this doesn't even really feel like an album. This just feels like a collection of just extra songs that are kind of lying around, and they just kind of threw it all together. Apparently they like met up in like 2019, like kind of secretive, like they weren't telling anybody they were actually recording anything, and well, I don't know, maybe they just should have just kept this whole album a secret. Again, I love this band, but man, I really just don't like this. This is just kind of bland and flat and really doesn't sound anything like their former glories at all. And it really doesn't push into any like new territory that's particularly good either. I had somewhat high hopes for this because I was excited to see this band was coming out with a new album, and yeah, no, not a fan. Still, again, that's just me. This might be your favorite Mars Volta album. Maybe if you haven't heard any of the other ones, I could definitely see that happening. But yeah, pretty let down by this one. All right, we have our first split of actually quite a few on here. We have a split between Kaiju Daisenso and Oxygen Destroyer. So this is a split between two Godzilla-loving extreme metal bands, and I'm a fucking giant nerd for Godzilla, so this was already perfect in concept to me. Now, I'm very familiar with Oxygen Destroyer. I have their two previous albums. They're both fucking awesome. The references and the music itself, which is very much like blackened death thrash, it is fast, intense, riffy as hell. I fucking love them, but it's the references and audio samples that they splice in from Godzilla movies that just kind of make me feel extra at home. I'm a giant Godzilla fanboy. Like, there's Godzilla shit all over my house, so seeing a metal band themed after Godzilla always just, you know, completely fucking warms my heart. Now, I wasn't familiar with Kaiju Daisenso. They are a New York City-based power violence band, and honestly, they're pretty damn good. Very thick, sludgy guitar and bass, like it's just super sizzly and kind of crackles a bit. I think the drums are a drum machine, but it kind of works as this sort of like almost industrial metal sound. Like the vocals are very hardcore driven. There's a lot of D beats. It's very fast and very aggressive, but it kind of has that industrial sound. It's like someone sped up Godflesh's Street Cleaner and added Kaiju stuff. So yeah, naturally that kind of appeals to me, and I ended up becoming a fan of this band. Now they have 5 tracks in here. They're all like super short, but they're all pretty damn good. I'm a little bit bigger fan of the Oxygen Destroyer side just because I've had more experience with that band, and they're fucking awesome. I love that band about as much as they love Godzilla, which is probably close to the same amount that I love Godzilla. So yeah, this was an absolutely fun split. Now, if you saw our head split unboxing from the last one they sent us, they actually sent us a copy of this one, so John got a copy because I had already bought this, because as soon as I found out about its existence, well, I was going to get it. Like, there's really no question about it. And I'm super glad I did, and I'm super glad he got his copy too. But yeah, if you have not checked out either one of these bands, well, just get this split, because the split is a perfect sampler size for both of them. So yeah, check it out. All right, we got another split here, and this is the Absolute Convergence split. This is between 4 bands: Perilaxe, Occlusion, Fumes, Celestial Sanctuary, and Thorn. Now, I'm a giant fan of all 4 of these bands, so I was really stoked to get this. I actually found out about this at a party I had here, and I was really drunk, and Jammin' John put on one of their tracks on the speaker. I was like, whoa, what the fuck is this? Like, oh, this is, I think it was Celestial Sanctuary's track. And I was like, that doesn't sound like anything that was on their last album. And I was like, no, it's not. It's from some split. And I literally looked it up, drunkenly went downstairs, drunkenly ordered this, and then, well, soberly waited for it to arrive. I think after I ordered it, I came up and he was playing the Perilaxe Occlusion track, and I was like, I'm so glad I fucking got this. Anyway, all 4 of these songs are really solid, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one. Perilaxe Occlusion, Canadian 2-man death metal act with one of the most unique themes, I think, ever. They talk about, like, digital mapping and, like, 3D rendering as a theme, but kind of make it sound evil. Absolutely awesome. I have their first 2 demos. They're both fucking fantastic, so I was stoked to hear anything new from them. And this new track is a little bit different. Their style is a little bit more groove-laden, kind of bordering on death doom at times. But this new song here, Serrated Tessellation, is a little bit more up-tempo, a little bit more just kind of fast and unhinged. It kind of reminded me more of Tomb Mold, but again, it was kind of cool hearing something slightly different from this really cool young band. Absolutely massive track. Next one up is Fumes with their song Monolith. Fumes actually features members of Gut Void, which we just went over their new album, and wow, this song's absolutely fucking disgusting. A little bit more technical, there's really cool bass playing in it. It's kind of spacey and strange. It kind of reminds me of like a combination of like Nocturnus and Morbid Angel. Absolutely fantastic song. And then you have Celestial Sanctuary's Trapped Within the Rank Membrane. Sounds fucking gross. Anyway, this was the one that I heard first, and I noticed it's a little bit different than the stuff that was on their last album. Vocally, it's a little bit closer to like Chuck Schuldiner's growls, kind of like their early years of Death. And I have to say the lead work is really prominent here. Like, it really adds a lot to the music. The riffs are fucking absolutely amazing. It opens up with a massive doomy riff, and then it just turns into this monstrous fucking song that kind of goes a little bit everywhere. Absolutely fantastic song. And then the last one, we have one-man act Thorn from Arizona, and this one man is also one of the 2 people that are in Fluids, which create their own fucking gross, disturbing stuff as well. Now, I still have yet to get the most recent Thorn album, but it was really cool to hear a new track, which is Pythonism? I don't know what that word is. But this one is a little bit different than the other tracks. First off, it's, I think, the only one with a drum machine on it, which is, you know, his style anyway. But the production is a little bit more like a demo. Like, it's a little bit more muffled, it's a little bit more raw. Could use a little bit of compression because I think the bass and guitar kind of bleed into one another at times. The vocals are a little bit more deep and gurgly and inhuman, and there's a lot of dreary melodies all over this. Like, this is definitely going for like a more somber, evil feel. All 4 of these songs are absolutely awesome. This fucking split is amazing. I still have yet to make my list for EPs and splits of the year, and shit like this makes it more complicated because I usually do 10. I don't know, I might have to do 15 because there's been a lot of good shit. But yeah, if you have not checked this out, oh my god, check it out. All 4 songs rule, all 4 bands rule, and yeah, that's pretty much all I got, so check it out. Fallujah Empyrean. This is the 5th album from this San Francisco-based tech death / progressive death metal band. I've been a fan of this band for a while. Admittedly, I kind of gravitate more towards the first album, Harvest Wounds. I think that's a really fucking killer tech death album. Their style started shifting over to more like ambient, like progressive death metal, and I kind of lost them there for a while, but I kept hearing a lot of good shit about this one, so I decided to pick it up, and this is honestly the best thing I've heard from them since their debut album. This gets back down to the more straightforward tech death sound with more progressive elements sprinkled in there. And I think they even strengthen their lineup with the addition of Evan Brewer on bass in here, which he does absolutely incredible things all across this album. This album gets flat out heavy again, like decapitated levels of like syncopated fucking, you know, breakdowns and grooves, but really lavish, cool lead play. And as technical as it is, it doesn't feel like it's complete wankery. There's good space between like the more technical moments when it comes down to just like, hey, let's riff it out for a minute, versus, hey, let's just hit every conceivable note on this guitar that we possibly can and see if anyone understands what the fuck we're doing. But hearing songs like the opening track, The Bitter Taste of Clarity, and Eden's Lament kind of just got me back into this band. I was like, all right, this is the shit that I fucking missed. Now, there's still a lot of atmosphere and a lot more proggy elements on here. Like, that's still a big part of their sound, but it feels like they've kind of centered in on that older sound and started incorporating more heavy, brutal elements on here. They do squeeze in some clean vocals every now and then. There are clean female vocals on here for atmosphere, and honestly, the whole thing sounds really good. Like, it's really good production. Of course, it's, you know, very compressed, very tight, but that is kind of what you want for more technical music, so you can hear all the notes. But it sounds good. It doesn't sound like too overproduced. Like, it actually has a somewhat natural sound to it. The drum work's fantastic. The lead work is fantastic. There's great fucking melodic hooks on here. And they even threw in a really kick-ass instrumental with Celestial Resonance, which has some like old school Meshuggah style triplet fucking chugs and like syncopation to it. It was good just to hear this band kind of get back to the heavy and kind of like bring that to the forefront versus the, you know, the more proggy atmospheric stuff. I still like those more atmospheric albums, but I really dug their debut. And to see them move on so dramatically from that debut on their next one, I just felt like there was more to build on, and this kind of picks up, I think, where that one left off. Now, I didn't listen to the last one they put out. Again, I was still kind of unsure as to whether or not I was going to be into it, just because, again, like, I've kind of been dicey on this band for a while. But a lot of you recommended this one. I took a chance on it, and it was really fucking good. So yeah, if you have not jammed this one and you're a tech death fan, this band is back to doing it again, and it sounds fucking great. So yeah, check it out. Flotsam Jetsam My God. This is the 8th album from this Arizona-based speed metal / thrash metal fucking act. I mean, they're kind of veterans of the scene. So I've been patching up holes in my Flotsam Jetsam collection, and yeah, some of the stuff that came out in the late 90s and apparently early 2000s has been very questionable. Now, I think this is a bit better than Unnatural Selection, but that isn't saying much because I don't like that album at all. Like, it's pretty fucking bad. This does have some more thrashy moments on it, like namely the opening track, Dig Me Up to Bury Me, which that makes no fucking sense. But again, much like Unnatural Selection, this sounds like a band that is essentially trying to find a new sound, but still kind of stuck in limbo with their old sound. And, well, I mean, at least in my opinion, they weren't in limbo enough with their old sound of this, because this is just a really uneven, weird fucking album. It's just kind of tonally all over the place. Like, Whether to Do, that sounds almost like Alice in Chains a little bit. Like, it's a little bit kind of doomy and sludgy, and Eric AK's vocals kind of getting close to the, like, Lane Staley sound there a bit. It's not the worst song, but at the same time, I was like, I mean, am I listening to Flotsam Jetsam? But I think it was probably the rapped vocals on Camera Eye, Nothing to Say, and Killing Time. Yeah, no, it's just cringy, and again, it just doesn't sound like the band. It just sounds like, well, they've been listening to a little bit of Rage Against the Machine and maybe Faith No More, and it hasn't really worked out very well. The production here is very dry. The guitars sound very squawky, but they do have a little bit more heft than the last one. There are some songs I didn't mind, like Keep Breathing is just kind of a decent sludgy rocker. It's got a weird bridge on it, but overall, like, not a terrible song. And the last instrumental, IAMH, it's an acronym for something I didn't care to look up. It's actually a really cool, like, kind of Middle Eastern piece. It's like more acoustic. It's kind of atmospheric. It's got a pleasant melody. It's all right. It does have a hidden track on here, which goes into an acoustic version of Whether to Do, which admittedly is pretty good. You know, I mean, Eric can definitely sing. But overall, like, this album is just kind of, I don't know, cringy. Like, it would be cringy back in 2001 if I had heard it, but even me listening to, like, more nu metal and metalcore at that point, I probably still would have thought this was kind of bad. And yeah, as much as I really like Flotsam Jetsam, especially their recent run of albums, like their last two for damn sure are absolutely amazing, They definitely had a rough patch here. Again, I'm going to say check this out, form your own opinions. You may really dig this one. For me, this is better than the one before it. Maybe a worse album cover. I don't know, they're both like really bad album covers. But yeah, not really a fan, but still check it out, form your own opinions. You may really dig it. Bestialis Prawdziwa Bestia. I don't know if I got that right. Anyway, this is the first demo from Florida heavy metal / blackened heavy metal act. This is one that Headsplit sent us, and looking up information on this band, I don't know, I think there's some misinformation because the more I looked into this, the less this band sounded like they were from Florida, especially when you consider the names of the musicians, the fact that none of these songs are in English, and I'm not entirely sure what language it's in. I'm guessing maybe Hungarian? I can pronounce like the last two tracks, Widma and Mame Dosk. Maybe I can't pronounce them. But the first one is just a mess of letters. Man, I would really like to buy a vowel in that, actually both of them. Yeah, I want to buy a vowel in both of these words. But musically, this was kind of cool. Like, this is definitely throwback heavy metal, very much along the lines of like Venom. It's a little bit of Celtic Frost there, and of course, like, you know, classic Judas Priest, Motorhead. Like, it's very throwback in the riffs. It does get a little bit more thrashy in the song Widma, which I had accidentally wrote down as Wilma, and I wanted to do the whole, you know, Flintstones shout, Wilma, you know, but that doesn't work now because it's Widma. And honestly, for a demo, it sounds really good. Like, they definitely went for a more retro feel, but it sounds good. I don't know about the last track being an original. It might be a punk cover because the song is almost more flat out punk than anything else. It's just the vocals and the music definitely scream more punk. Like, the vocal cadences are a little bit different. I can't tell you what the hell they're saying, but it sounds like a punk anthem of some kind. But overall, I really dug this. I liked all three tracks. I think the artwork's fucking killer, and it's kind of fun. And there's a bit of a mystery to it, because again, I don't believe for a second that this band is from Florida originally. I know they share one member with Hexorcist, and I've gone over one of their albums in a collection update in the past, but I don't remember if that dude is from Florida either. I don't know, I just have a suspicion that they are not from Florida. But regardless, I like the music. This is a pretty solid demo. I would definitely check out more by this band. It's just good throwback heavy metal with some fucking like Venom evilness to it. So yeah, if you like anything that sounds like that, definitely check this out. Hekatoxen, Utter Darkness EP. This is the debut EP from this Finnish death metal act. Honestly, most people have me in Finnish death metal, and I initially thought this was black metal. I think I guessed black metal in the unboxing. I was wrong. This is flat out just nasty death metal. Now, what I think's cool about this is definitely Finnish death metal in terms of production, guitar tone, but honestly, I got a lot of like Polish death metal on here. In fact, I got like Vader and maybe like earlier Behemoth when they really just embraced death metal more. Vocally, I think the frontman sounds a lot like Nurgle doing his flat out death metal delivery, but there's that sort of Vader intensity, especially in the drums, which are like frequently stampeding on here. And holy shit, does this band have riffs. The song Haunting Ceremony is just ridiculously catchy. It has sort of like a bolt thrower like groove to it, and I'm an absolute sucker for that. But the main riff that carries it is super catchy. The song Frozen, I think, is also a standout. They actually have some cool atmosphere with like, you know, winter wind blowing, like a blizzard, and it kind of leads in the song. And the song itself is massive. The later tracks in here are a little bit longer than the opening tracks. And those longer songs take their time to build up. They go into like different movements in there. They're a lot more dynamic, I guess you could say. I want to say even the last track, Transformation, has like a flat out D-beat crust section on it that is absolutely fucking sick. And I really like the production on here too. It sounds very organic. The guitar's nice and thick and sludgy. And this is a three-piece band, and they have an incredibly full sound on here. But yeah, all four tracks in here absolutely whoop ass. I want to say Headsplit actually commented on the unboxing video, was like, dude, you're gonna like that Hekatoxen. And y'all were fucking right. I fucking dig the fuck out of this. And again, this is an absolute pain in the ass because I haven't made my EP list, and as much as I've been listening to this one, it's got a good chance of being on my EP list, and my EP list has a good chance of being longer this year. But yeah, if you have never jammed this band, much like I hadn't ever jammed this band, let alone even knew about their existence, definitely check this one out. This is some fucking fantastic death metal. Wolfheart, King of the North. This is the 6th album from this Finnish melodic death metal act. Came out this year on Napalm Records. I've been meaning to get some of this band's work. This is literally the first album that I've picked up by them. We actually went over their EP not too long ago, but I had yet to pick up anything by them. You know, it's possible I may have got them confused with the litany of other wolf-oriented bands out there, because there's a lot. Like, not quite as many as, like, death and coffin-oriented bands, but there's definitely a fuck ton of wolf bands. Now, I am actually familiar with this band's frontman. He fronts Before the Dawn, I believe, and I actually have, like, 2 of their albums, and I thought they were a pretty solid melodic death metal act as well, but honestly, I like this a bit more than what I've heard from Before the Dawn. One of the main things I like about it is it's really heavy. Like, that is kind of a thing that I think sometimes melodic death metal, it can kind of get lost in the melodic aspects and kind of lose the heaviness in spots. This gets flat out heavy and vicious, but it balances it out with good melodies, and that also counts in the vocals too, because there are clean and harsh vocals on here. The songwriting here is very dynamic too. It almost borders on like progressive metal in spots. Like, there are definitely moments in here that reminded me more of bands like Enslaved than it did like, you know, straight up melodic death metal. There's also even some symphonic elements on here that actually kind of sit nicely in the mix. They don't come across as annoying, and they don't take away from the song or distract from like the killer fucking guitar work that's going on in here. And we also get a pair of guests on here that kind of balance out their sound. On the song Ancestor, we have Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage, who is a fucking incredible singer and contributes, I believe, both harsh and clean vocals. Like, I know he's got the clean vocals on the chorus. I mean, as well he should. He's a really fucking good singer. But I think he also does some harsh vocals in here too. And then on Cold Flame, we have fucking Carl Sanders from Nile delivering some ungodly fucking growls. And that song is fucking brutal and epic as fuck. I absolutely love that one. Overall, I really dug this. It's a bit longer of an album, but it flows really well. It keeps the intensity up and it keeps the songs really interesting. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to get some more by Wolfheart, because this was really fucking good. So if you're a big melodic death metal fan and you have not heard of this band, I recommend checking them out. I think they definitely offer something kind of fresh to melodic death metal, at least in terms of like bringing some intensity to it, but still delivering on everything you would want out of fucking melodic death metal in general. This is a pretty fucking solid album, so yeah, check it out. Alright, next up we have yet another split from Fluids and Fulci. So I didn't even know about this one's existence until I went on Night Shift Merch and saw that this was being released, and actually being released through them. This is an official release from the distro. So for those that don't know, what we have here is a split between 2 drum machine loving death metal acts that love horror that aren't Mortician. I've been a fan of both for a while now, so I was really eager to check this out. Now, Fulci has 2 tracks on here, and they're both very different. The opening track, Lonely Hearts, starts off very ambient and synthy and kind of creepy. Like, there's some fucking carnival noises on there and like a busted fucking tilt-a-whirl or some shit. I don't know. Like, it sounds unsettling, and then we get into just what they do, which is just groove-laden, brutal, fucking awesome death metal. I absolutely love this song. It kind of embodies kind of both things that they do really well, because they do a lot of like ambient synth stuff now, like kind of along the lines of Goblin or even John Carpenter to a degree. Their last album, in fact, the whole back half of it was all like really just doomy horror synth stuff, and it sounded fucking amazing. This song captures both sides of the fucking coin for fucking Fulci, and it's awesome. But then you have the more straight up synthy song Wonderland, and that is just flat out horror sense. Like, this sounds like it should be the score to a fucking Fulci flick. Really good, very ambient, very creepy, and like kind of heavy in its own way. Like, it at no point sounds like very poppy. It doesn't sound very welcoming. It sounds kind of unnerving, but that fun like 80s unnerving. And then Fluids just has one song in here which literally captures kind of all of that. They kind of do a big horror synth, sort of like almost industrial start, and then this breaks into not only like flat out death metal, but kind of like grindcore. Like, this is probably the closest they've come to sounding just like Mortician in a while is on this song, which is called Daddy-O for the record, which is just like, it's kind of a funny name. But this song is a little bit longer, and it kind of goes all over the place. Again, you have that kind of grindcore moment, the very like synthy dark intro, and then of course getting into what they're really known for, like grooving, nasty, chuggy riffs, and just unsettling atmosphere. Honestly, this might be the first one I've heard from them in a while that doesn't involve a sample of someone doing something horrible to someone else, or someone doing something horrible to themselves. These guys like to splice in a lot of fucked up samples that are real. It's not like horror movie shit. It's like, nah, life's got plenty of horrors we can sample. It's like, man, I really wish you wouldn't. But it's a strange song, but it's a really good song. And honestly, I love this entire split. It's just fucking exactly what I want from both of them, and them both doing what they do exceptionally well. This is like a perfect short Halloween listen right here. If you love, again, like horror atmosphere, like 80s horror, stuff like that, and you like fucking exceptionally brutal fucking death metal, definitely check out this split. It's fucking awesome. Innumerable Forms, Philosophical Collapse. This is the second album from this Boston-based Death Doom act. Actually features members of Dream Unending, Power Trip, and Genocide Pact. And honestly, at one point was a one-man project from one Justin Attore, who is the drummer and vocalist of Dream Unending as well. Now, I was a big fan of Punishment and Flesh, but honestly, I see this as a giant improvement. This is just an absolutely monolithically heavy fucking album. Brooding Death Doom, the production here is much more raw, the vocals feel way more pronounced and way more fucking evil for damn sure too. I like the fact that they have that sort of cavernous fucking vibe to them, but he enunciates stuff well so you can make out at least, you know, a good chunk of the words in here, and they all sound bleak and oppressive as hell, which, you know, perfectly matches the music. I really enjoy the lead guitar melodies in here. They definitely capture that dreary sound really well, especially the song Built on Rot. The whole end of that song is exceptionally bleak and fucking hopeless. But when it comes down to bringing the fucking doom hammer down, Lifeless Harvest and Bleeding Time, oh my fucking god, those songs are just dark. It's just a wave of darkness fucking rolling across your body, and in that darkness there's someone beating the shit out of you with a tire iron. I don't know. It's heavy, it's dark, it kind of sounds like early Hooded Menace. It just feels inescapable, but like in a good way. And if it's not dark and doomy, sometimes it's just flat out fucking evil, like the breakdown on Deified Tyrants. Jesus. There's even a song in here called Thrall, which, I mean, you know, be kind of stupid of me to say it's my favorite track, but it is good. And it does kind of sound like Triptychon a bit, so I do really like it. But yeah, I just like the fact that the word Thrall's in there, because I'm a dork. Now, we wanted to review this one, but we just simply didn't have time with all the releases that were coming out, because September was fucking nuts with releases, just as October is for the most part. But I knew I was going to pick this one up, I knew I was going to cover it eventually, and holy shit, this is fucking awesome. Again, I think it's even better than the first one, and I really enjoyed that album. If you love Incantation, Hooded Menace, stuff like that, oh my god, you will love this album. It is dark, brooding, heavy. It is almost suffocating. It's so heavy. So if any of that sounds really good, I recommend checking this one out like fucking immediately. It's fucking awesome. Carnal Ruin, Soulless I Remain. This is the debut album from this Tampa-based death metal act. Listening to them, you wouldn't think Tampa, because sonically, I think they lurk somewhere in Stockholm, because this is some filthy HM2 stuff. So naturally, the HM2 slut that lives within me was fully engaged, engrossed, and erect. This is just flat-out Swedish death metal, very much in the vein of Bloodbath, Dismember, Entombed. How the fuck could I not love it? The production here is fucking great. The drums are fucking booming. The guitar tone absolutely fucking snarls. And it balances out fucking brutality and melody really well. There's really good atmosphere on it. The vocals are solid. It's pretty much checking off every box that I would want from any Stockholm-sounding death metal band ever. And with all that sort of classic Stockholm energy, they also work in like some more like modern tropes like hardcore-infused death metal like Creeping Death and Gate Creeper. There's a lot of that sort of like groove to the breakdowns. But there's a solid amount of melody on here, and honestly, it kind of reminded me of a band like Evocation, where they were kind of like 1 foot in Stockholm in terms of their sound, but also 1 foot in Gothenburg in terms of their sound. And it kind of works as a good bridge in a lot of spots here. The other thing that keeps it really rooted is this was mastered by Dan Swano, and it definitely sounds like something Dan Swano has graced in the studio. So yeah, naturally I dug this, but I dug their earlier stuff. I have one of their EPs and a compilation of their earlier works as well that I thought was really good. And this comes with like, I don't know, kind of a weird cloud kind of hanging over it, because the rumblings and rumors that I heard are that this band is breaking up after this album. Like, I don't know if they've already announced they've broken up or not, but that was the rumor I heard, and don't, because this is really good, and I need more kick-ass HM2 stuff. I mean, I'm kidding. Kinda. I mean, I would really like this band to stick around, because I feel like I'm just now getting into them. They haven't been around for very long, but yeah, like, I really dig this band. They have an awesome sound, they embody the style well, and they actually have some cool modern elements in there that kind of keep it fresh. So I'm hoping that is just a rumor, and it will be dispelled very shortly with them saying, hey, we're going to go on tour or something like that. Anyway, I think I've gushed about this one enough. Y'all know I fucking like it, and I'm naturally going to recommend it to anyone out there that likes, again, Entomb, Dismember, Bloodbath, and again, like Evocation. I think they're kind of similar to them too. Main point is, definitely check this out. Hopefully they're sticking around, but yeah, more of this, please. Cryptivore, Celestial Extinction. This is the debut album from this one-man Australian death grind act. I picked this up, I believe, on Caligari Records, just pretty much on a whim. I just saw the words death and grind, and sometimes that's just enough, and I'm super glad I did. This is some really interesting death grind. The guitar tone in here is super thick and chunky, almost kind of like a beefed up thrash tone, and the drums in here might be real. I don't know. Like, if they're not, it's a really solid drum program that sounds very organic and very fucking powerful. But the thing that makes it interesting is kind of the songwriting. Like, it definitely has death grind spots and flat out grind spots in here, but there are a lot of really cool just like grooves, melodies. There's lots of thrashy hooks on here. A lot of the stuff really reminded me of stuff like, you know, Solstice's first two albums, or even fellow Australians Werewolves in terms of their like blackened death grind sound, which I absolutely fucking love. But there's a lot more dynamics than you expect from like, you know, more straightforward death grind in here. You have like really cool breakdowns, especially on Monastery Worms. The leads are more than just like your squeals and dive bombs. There's actual like melody to them. There's really cool phrasing to them. The songs overall may be like a little bit longer than you expect from death grind. Like they're kind of more in like the 3.5 minute range for the most part. There's definitely some shorter ones on here, but like the longer songs definitely explore more dynamics, especially songs like Cadaverizer and the title track. The title track actually has some elements of fucking doom to it. Vocally, it's more of a straightforward death metal roar for the entire thing. Like they do get a little monotone, but it's still a solid delivery. But the thing that really kept me engaged in this was the guitar work. There's lots of really cool different riffs and very distinct ones too. It's not all just super fast playing. There are melodies and riffs you can really pick out and all the blast beats and just, you know, furious fucking aggressive music on here. So yeah, needless to say, I really dug this. This is an absolutely killer fucking release. Came out this year. Strongly recommend checking this out. If you're a grindcore freak and you just like very thrashy death metal, I would say this would definitely appeal to you as well. So yeah, definitely check this out. This is fucking sick. Morningside, Contra Mundum. This is the third album from this Swedish progressive metal act, or progressive death metal act. I don't know. I don't think it's either one of those, but I'll get into that. Now, this is my first exposure to this band, and apparently this is their first release in like almost 20 years. They apparently broke up after their second album in 1996 and then reformed in 2013. And at least from what I saw on the archives, they were labeled as progressive death metal. They might have been before this one, but this one, I mean, I guess it's kind of progressive, but at the same time, I don't know, this feels like almost like industrial melodic death metal. Not that that's like a bad thing, but, you know, getting yourself hyped for what it's described as in terms of their profile versus what you got, there's a little bit of adjusting. This is definitely done clearly with a drum machine. The vocals on here are very robotic and just kind of like an industrial, you know, metal sort of sound. Like they kind of have like a weird filter on them. Kind of has that same delivery you'd expect from like Meshuggah or like Godflesh or something like that. But musically, it's definitely more akin to like melodic death metal or like technical melodic death metal, like Morse Prince of PMS. There's definitely spots in here that's very reminiscent of early Arch Enemy as well. Bassline, it kind of sounds like a proggier, more melodic version of the Berserker. Maybe not as grindy and fast, but I mean, it definitely has kind of that sound overall, and this does get pretty fast. There's a fair amount of blast beats on here. It's just sort of an odd album. There's occasional clean vocals on here, like the song Nest of Vipers and the song Sleep. I think they do them better on Sleep. Nest of Vipers, it kind of comes with this really strange, clean sort of like bridge on that song, and I don't know, like it doesn't quite gel, it just kind of is there. But there are some flat out brutal moments in here, like the breakdown on Who Will Crown the King. Lots of triplet chugging, again, like kind of like early Meshuggah on there. Musically, overall, I think it's pretty decent. Like there's a lot of good leads on there. There's a lot of solid riffs, a lot of solid breakdowns, you know, just, you know, pretty decent songwriting overall. It's the vocals that kind of grate on me after a while because it's that same robotic delivery when it comes down to harsh vocals across the entire album. It just gets me really monotonous after a while. Like you kind of just want them to do something slightly different, like a higher scream or a lower roar, something to get out of that one same fucking register that just holds sway almost on this entire album. Overall though, I think it's pretty decent. I would definitely check out more by this band. I wouldn't mind hearing their earlier stuff just to see maybe where the progressive death metal comparisons come from, because honestly I didn't get many on here, but still recommend checking this out. This was one I got in the Metalhead box, and it's pretty decent. So once again, thank you to the Metalhead box for sending some cool shit my way. And as always, of course, check it out. Vredensdal, Silence is Eternal. This is the third album from this Green Bay black metal act. We have some US black metal. In fact, they even tell us here on the back. This is my first exposure to this band as well. This is also one I got in the Metalhead box, and out of the two, this is the fucking winner, because this is some just flat out awesome black metal. This definitely kind of locks on to a very particular style of black metal I like, that nice second wave sound. And holy shit, these guys are riffy. This is not just the droning on cold tremolo riffs the entire time. This is very dynamic songwriting, lots of great riffs. The production here is appropriately raw, but it's well mixed. I legit loved every fucking song on here, and this is a band I definitely want to get more by for damn sure. Reminds me a lot of Dark Throne, circa Blaze of the Northern Sky, early Satyricon, and some flat out Marduk intensity, as well as some Watain level melody on here too. The second track on here, Ice in My Heart, has one of the catchiest fucking riffs on this entire album, and I was absolutely hooked. But even before that, I mean, the setup is really nice. The song is called Cold Northern Hellscape, which is kind of what I call this area during the winter, but I keep having to remember that, believe me, there are people further up north that'll say, listen, your winter is fucking bitch built, try living here. In which my response be, you're out of your fucking mind, I hate snow. But I love the clean intro melody that comes in. You hear the wind blowing, and it's probably a snowstorm because, I mean, this is Wisconsin. And that slowly builds into the song, which is just a grand, huge fucking song. It's cold, it's gnarly. The whole thing just kind of reeks of just classic second wave black metal, and I love that shit. But again, it's that riffiness, it's the dynamics, the melodies. There's good leads in here too. And even the last track, the title track, actually closes with that same opening melody that it opens with, and I really like that. It's just like a really cool bookend there. One of the big standouts in here for me was the song Misanthropy, which that's a hell of a made-up word. That song is almost flat out blackened thrash. There is a breakdown on there that actually employs more of a southern sludge riff to it too. It just gets a little bit like Crowbar and Acid Bath for just a second, and then kind of goes back into the cold northern wasteland, or rather, sorry, hellscape that they live in. The thing that really caught me off guard about this was how melodic and catchy it was. It still retains all its rawness, it's still very aggressive, it's still very evil sounding, but this band knows how to write some really fucking solid hooks. So yeah, this was my big takeaway from the Metalhead box. I have a band I definitely want to hunt down more by, just because this one was so fucking good. So yeah, if you have never checked out this band before, much like I hadn't, holy shit, this is some really fucking killer black metal, and I'm definitely going to get more. So yeah, check it out. Okay, these next three are going to be by the same artist, and this was actually sent to me by one of the members of this band, and that band is Aquila. I think that's how you say that, Aquila, I'm not entirely sure. But this is their third demo, it came out in 2013, and this is a Canadian metalcore act. And this was sent to me by their frontman, Mark Aruda, who is a subscriber, frequent commenter. He actually got a hold of me on Facebook and asked if he could send me some stuff, and I was like, yeah, of course you can. So he sent me some stuff, and this is metalcore, but melodic metalcore, or metalcore that kind of goes after the whole melodic death metal sound. Definitely a very mid-2000s sort of sound, comparable to Unearth, but also mix in bands like Carnal Forge along the way. This first demo is maybe a little bit rough in terms of production. In fact, the production on the first track to the last two tracks is very different, and this is definitely the sound of a band trying to find their sound together. At its core, it is definitely metalcore. You have all the breakdowns, you have all the hardcore shouts, but there's lots of melodic death metal lead work on here to accompany it. But this still sounds very rough. It still sounds like they're still trying to find the direction of the band. Vocally, Mark is kind of trying a lot of different stuff. There's hardcore shouts, there's deep death metal roars, there's more of a basic kind of mid-range growl in there too. There's some spoken word, I think, on here. There's a lot of stuff that he's doing just to see if he can add some spice to the songs. And riff-wise, it's definitely going kind of back and forth between melodic death metal, thrash metal, and metalcore. So this first one was kind of them definitely still working shit out. Granted, this was their third demo, but it's still a little rough around the edges. Oh yeah, the title of it is Valle Mortalitatis. Mortalitatis? Yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, Valle Mortalitatis is definitely a little bit more rough around the edges, and still, I think, playing to their influences. There's some stuff in here that definitely sounds like Killswitch Engage. I think overall this was like pretty decent. Again, the production's kind of rough, but this is a demo, so you kind of give it a watch there. But I listened to these in order of them being released, so I got a little bit of a timeline here in terms of like them expanding their sound over years. And I think that was the right way to go about it, because the next one I thought was a lot better, but still, check this one out. Next, we have their first official EP, Jewel of the Empire's Crown. This came out in 2020. And this is already an improvement. The songwriting is tighter, the production is better, and I see them bringing in like some more extreme influences. Like there are blast beats in the second track, Haunted, The Sands of Time, and this has an absolute banger of a fucking instrumental, Jewel of the Emperor's Crown, the title track. There's still a good amount of variety. Like there's a little bit of like Lamb of God in this one too, in the song Glorify, which is kind of like a faster Lamb of God song, like kind of, well, not what they like to write now because they really love that mid-tempo groove. Case in point, new album. But this one was cool to hear some like different influences come in and they contribute immediately. Again, Haunted, those tremolo riffs that come in, the blast beats, it kind of gives it like a darker vibe. I think the vocals get a little bit more sinister in here, which this one you see Mark really start to center in on one particular vocal style. Like he's kind of narrowing it down to like, you know, a mid-range growl and like maybe some higher screams every now and then. And I think that, you know, less is more philosophy kind of helps it like come together a little bit better. Like it's more uniform across the board. But yeah, this one was solid. Granted, it does sound like that metalcore sound from years ago. I like the other elements squeezed in there to sort of keep it fresh, and it's well executed. Like, you know, the melodies are solid, the hooks are good, and the breakdowns are plentiful, but they're also really fucking good. So yeah, this one, big improvement, and I really dug this one. And then we have their most recent EP that came out this year, The Great Fire. And this one is a little bit different than the other two. And I kind of like the fact that each one is different and there's definitely like a progression of their sound. This one's a little bit more dark and more sinister. And honestly, a lot of the like earlier metalcore is kind of being pushed back a little bit in favor of more like death metal and melodic death metal. This has a more heavy production. I think the guitars sound less thrashy, they're more thick and kind of have more of a death metal tone. Mark's vocals definitely sound more sinister. The songs are a little bit longer, they're more dynamic, and there's just a darker tone overall. Like this feels way more sinister. Like this doesn't feel like, you know, that hardcore aggression is always in your face. This feels like this is more brooding, like it's taking more time to build up. And it's more of like a death metal or melodic death metal type aggression. Like it doesn't feel like metalcore as much. Granted, there are still some nasty fucking breakdowns on here, but a lot of this just feels a little bit more along the lines of melodic death metal, and it's really fucking good. And honestly, that's what I kind of liked with getting like 3 EPs like this, or there are 2 EPs in the demos. I got to hear like this progression of their sound over the course of years, and this band consistently got better, at least in my opinion. I'm not like the biggest metalcore fan anymore, but there's definitely a part of me that still loves that sound in terms of like going back and revisiting the albums that I love in that genre. And this reminds me a lot of stuff that I used to jam that was kind of in that vein, like Unearth or even The Haunted too, like it has bits of that. This is just a solid fucking heavy EP, and I recommend all 3, honestly. Mostly the last 2 that I brought up. I think this is definitely the best one of the bunch. But, you know, the other stuff I still think is really good, especially if you like mid-2000s metalcore. Like, it's very much in the vein of that sound, but also, again, melodic death metal. But this one I definitely think is the best of the bunch. And, again, if you have not checked out this band before, definitely check them out. I think they're really solid. Thank you again, Mark, for sending me this stuff. I really appreciate that you sent them here and you value my opinion enough for me to fucking ramble on about your band. But, yeah, good stuff, man. Thank you so much, and definitely check this band out. Escuela Grind, Memory Theater. This is the second album from this New York power violence / grindcore / hardcore, maybe death metal. I don't know. This band's fucking heavy. Now, John and I actually saw this band perform at Heavy Hell 3 in Indianapolis, and they were one of the heaviest fucking bands there. This is flat out fucking savage. I guess, like, again, grindcore, power violence, death metal, hardcore, it's kind of all wrapped into one particularly vicious fucking package. The riffs on here are absolutely fucking primal, and the guitar tone is ridiculously heavy. As much as there's a lot of like hardcore and grind riffing and blast beats, there are like big like Mortician style brutal death metal chugs on here. And their frontwoman's performance on here is nothing short of fucking vicious. It just feels so contemptful, like everything she is fucking screaming about she literally hates. But watching her perform, she was smiling her ass off and jumping around on stage. It was like, you know what, I like that when people talk about like the most fucked up shit, but they're all fucking smiling because they're having a good time. I love how this album pivots between just like all the grindcore violence, you know, blast beats, fierce downpicking, punk riffs, to flat out brutal breakdowns and just hardcore grooves on here. With all the fucking brutal shit going on here, this is just an absolutely savage listen. There's even like some D-beat crustiness to it. But I think it's the hardcore grooves that really hit the most, especially in the song All Is Forgiven. Judging by the tone of the song, I don't think anything's fucking forgiven in that one. But it is just a solid beat down of a song with giant lumbering grooves. And again, this guitar tone is so fucking thick and chunky on here. Every single song on here is heavier than hell, and there's really like strange atmosphere that sort of separates the songs, like some weird electronic bleeps and like extra percussion that's not necessarily rhythmic, it's just there, like shit being kind of hit in the background. Honestly, now listening to this, I really should have bought a shirt because their shirt designs were really fucking cool. I think they even had one that was themed after Akira, which I fucking love that movie. But yeah, this band's awesome. I definitely need to get more of their stuff. This is just insanely vicious fucking music in general. Strongly recommend it. If you ever have a chance to see this band live, go fucking see them. Maybe don't get too close because the pits look pretty fucking violent. They were moshing on fucking like quarry stone. We're not bright here in the Midwest, but I don't know where I was going with that, but just check this out. It's really good. City of Caterpillar, Mystic Sisters. This is the second album from this Richmond, Virginia post-hardcore act. This band actually broke up in 2003 and then reformed, I believe, in 2016. And this is actually the first time I have ever heard of them, and I bought them namely because I know one of the members is Ryan Parrish, formerly of Darkest Hour and current Iron Reagan drummer. And honestly, it's been a while since I've jammed some post-hardcore, so I was kind of, you know, curious what all they actually sounded like. And this is a very strange listen. Now, this is not metal. It's not really metal heavy, but it is heavy in its own right. It's just a very strange, atmospheric, very distant listen. Lots of like atmospheric tremolos and long build-ups and songs. And honestly, I think those are really cool. Like there's a sort of vibe to this. It's very dark and just kind of unsettling, but also like very melodic and very engaging. The vocals are kind of like more desperate cries and yelps. Like it's more akin to bands like Thursday, maybe These Arms Are Snakes. Actually reminding me of Scatter the Ashes, which is a band I don't think I've ever referenced on here, but I did listen to them at one point. There was definitely a period I was really into this stuff, and I would say like Thursday was probably one of the big gateways into that for me. But I think this is definitely more like heavier edged than Thursday. Like this just feels more aggressive in spots. But it's the long song building on here that I really enjoyed, especially Ascension Theft and Voiceless Prophets. I think those songs were really good about just like building tension, building atmosphere. And I think the drum work in here is really good. Like this is a little bit different than what I'm used to hearing from Ryan Parrish, which he's just a solid, aggressive drummer. I mean, that's why he's in Iron Reagan for damn sure. I think he even took over in Mammoth Grinder. Well, they were still around. I know it's been a while since their last release. It's just a very strange listen, honestly. Like you have your more noisy moments that are kind of like bands like Unsane. And you also have this sort of like balance between like spastic post-hardcore and like, you know, very pretty art rock. Like there's like a little bit of Radiohead to some of this stuff too. It's definitely not something I would listen to on a regular basis, but I did enjoy it, and it is very engaging. It's kind of a good break from a lot of the stuff I listened to too, because a lot of this stuff was just brutal as shit and just beating my fucking head in. So yeah, this is my legit first experience with them. I have never heard their first album. I don't really know much about it at all. But after this one, I don't know, I might check it out. But yeah, this is definitely not metal, but it's definitely heavy in its own right. So I don't know, check it out. You might really dig it. The Chasm, The Scars of a Lost Reflective Shadow. I don't know what any of the Chasm's album titles or half of their song titles mean, but it sounds cool. Anyway, this came out this year. This is their 8th full length. This band is originally from Mexico, now in Chicago. It's kind of a surprise release. I didn't know about this coming out until I actually saw someone say, hey, literally the Chasm released an album like today. And I was able to jam it in terms of like it being streamed, and I was like, holy shit. Much like every Chasm album I've heard, I have to get this one, but it wasn't out on CD yet. Someone finally told me, like, hey, they're out on CD. I ordered it, here it is, and oh my god, I fucking love it. I think I did say in the last one there would be more Chasm, because this had already arrived by the time I was recording that last collection update. man, this is fucking awesome. Now, the one before this one was all instrumental, so this one brings back the vocals. There are still 3 instrumentals on here, but the songwriting here, again, it's just so goddamn good. Like, it goes from, like, really cool, like, thrashy death metal to very atmospheric stuff. There's great lead work. There's amazing riff work. The drum work's solid. It's pretty much everything that Chasm does extraordinarily well once again. I will say I think the bass drum sounds a little bit clicky on this one, but man, again, the songwriting is amazing. The song An Occult Gift Responds, again, I have no idea what any of this means. That song has one of the best fucking breakdowns I think I've heard from this band yet. Like, it is just unbelievably catchy. The riff is just instantly an earworm. There's really cool, like, occasional spacey atmosphere in here, which makes sense with all the song titles that I don't completely understand. And honestly, this feels a little bit more concise than at least some of the past albums that I've jammed. Like, it's 42 minutes, but it's wrapped up very tight. Like, the energy never wanes, and almost to the point where you feel like the songs might be, like, a little bit shorter than, say, they could be. But I suppose they make up for that with, like, really long song titles, like the last track, The Funeral Cortege, Sepulchre, Final Flight of the Hateful Raven. I think there should be a comma in there, maybe. I don't know. Portal to the Isolated Domain. That's all one track name right there. But it's amazing. Pretty much like everything on here. Honestly, I don't think there's really any filler on here at all. Like, this is like a continuous barrage of really awesome riffs and songwriting and great peaks and valleys in terms of just all the dynamics on here. I'm a diehard fucking Chasm fan, in case you haven't figured that out by now. I absolutely love this album, and I didn't know I was actually going to get a Chasm album this year. I wasn't even sure if they were still around because it had been a little while since their last release. But here it is, and it's fucking awesome. So yeah, if you have never jammed the Chasm, honestly, this is not a bad place to start right here. But personally, I would just say check out any of their stuff. I really haven't found anything I didn't like in there, and if you like really thrashy death metal and great fucking riff work, definitely check out this band in general. They're just fucking amazing. But yeah, check out this new one too, just because it's new Chasm. And that's enough of a reason for me, so check it out. Knocked Loose, Laugh Tracks. It's the debut album from this Kentucky-based hardcore act, came out in 2016. And I've been a fan of them since their second album, A Different Shade of Blue. I picked up their most recent EP from last year. This is some absolutely awesome hardcore, and I love flat-out hardcore. And this band is, well, definitely that. It's very brutal. It's very groove-laden. And honestly, it has just enough love for death metal where it feels like a little bit different, but it doesn't feel like bands like, again, like Gate Creeper or Creeping Death, where it is hardcore infused death metal. This is hardcore with like some death metal nods in it. The opening track, Oblivion's Peak, has a flat-out like death metal harmony to it. And honestly, the song A Fetish has some really distinct death metal riffs too, but this band is all about just pummeling you. This is very groove laden. It does have some more up-tempo moments like D-beat sections, but this is just about bringing breakdown after breakdown and contempt-filled vocals on every fucking track. Now, vocally, this band's kind of hit or miss for me, just because I think sometimes the vocals are a little too screechy, but they do throw in some backup vocals to add some depth to it. They're a little bit more like low-register death metal roars. And that's a big thing in here is it's not death metal for damn sure, but it has like death metal heaviness to it. These riffs on here can hang with fucking like Tribal Gaze and 200 Stab Wounds. They love those big palm muted chugs that just drive the fucking songs. This is like a perfect mix of my love of old school Victory Record stuff and just, you know, current death metal trends right now. And there's some interesting surprises on here as far as like samples. Like the end of Dead Ringer has, it's what sounds like an old rhythm and blues song that I couldn't place, but it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and then we're into the next song after that. And the last track, Laugh Tracks, literally ends with a laugh track, and it reminded me how much I fucking hate canned laughter. Like, that kills most fucking shows for me. If they have canned laughter, then I'm not fucking watching them. I decide when I laugh, not you, CBS, ABC, and whatever else is out there. Now, this was produced by Will Putney too, and that's a producer like I am kind of like hit or miss with as well. Like, sometimes he does a really good job and the album sounds huge and fucking heavier than hell, and then other times it just sounds like he's kind of compressed the life out of it. This sounds insanely heavy. Like, the guitar tone on here is simply massive. The drums have a great punch to them. He did a great job in this one. Definitely check this out. I would say check out their last EP in particular. That is just an absolutely disgustingly heavy EP. But yeah, just check out Knocked Loose. They're fucking good. And finally, we have Paganizer, Beyond the Macabre. This is their 11th studio album, features one Roga Johansson or Raga Johansson. Either way, he's in 30 plus fucking bands, and he might be in your band right now. Look around the room, he could be there. He'd be the guy with the Swedish accent holding a guitar, more than likely. Anyway, this, I would say, is possibly his main band, at least the one that he's the most prolific with, maybe next to Revolting. And honestly, this is the first full length I've picked up from. I have one EP by Paganizer, and I thought it was really good, and saw this one in indie merch, and I was like, you know what, let's just get a Paganizer album, because I've heard a lot of good things. And this is straight up old school Swedish death metal, fiercely fucking 90s, like all the old school tropes you could possibly want from the Stockholm sound are here. It does kind of pivot between like the more classic stuff, more like D-beat and sort of thrash oriented death metal versus the more blast beat kind of driven stuff, kind of like Bloodbath. But overall, this kind of just sticks to that classic fucking sound, just goes by the fucking riffs. You know, creepy atmosphere, loads of groove, and even some occasional surprises like raving rhymes of rot. That's fun to say. That actually has like an almost black metal feel to it, and the title track on here actually kind of closer to Melodeath, like kind of like a heavier Hypocrisy song. Vocally, it's got just a good classic death metal fucking delivery, and I mean, honestly, I could just describe this as meat and potatoes, and maybe the seasoning's kind of the same, like you've definitely had this meal before, but it's a good fucking meal, so you're gonna sit down and enjoy it. It's riffy, it's fun, it's mosh-worthy. It has Carl Willits from Bolt Thrower on it, and the last track, Unpeaceful End, and that song possibly is my favorite one on there, and it's not just because Carl's on it. That is part of the reason. But it's the most slow, doomy, brooding song on here, and honestly, it just sounds fucking epic. The tremolo harmonies on it give it a nice evil feel overall, but it just feels just brooding and dark, and Carl's vocals on it sound absolutely appropriate. This is a solid fucking album, and honestly, I think I need to get some more Paganizer. I just don't know where to start, because I kind of hate getting into a band that's been around for a long time with just one release. I'm like, well, fuck, how many other albums they got? Oh, 10 more. Cool. All right, I got a lot of fucking stuff to get and a lot of stuff to check out, and I got to figure out which ones are the fucking turkeys of the bunch, so I don't get those first and have that kind of sway me from getting any more. There's a science to it, kind of, or at least in my head there is. But yeah, I definitely want to get more by Paganizer. This was a really solid album. Definitely check this out if you're a fan of just flat out old school Swedish death metal and you love that Stockholm sound like me. This also got the HM2 slot to come out in me, but maybe not as much as that Carnal Ruin one. But yeah, this was still really fucking good. Definitely check it out. Alright, that knocks out another giant batch. A lot of cool stuff in this one. This was a lot of fun to go over, especially since we were getting sent some stuff, and I think that's really awesome that people send us stuff and value our opinion. I barely value my own opinion, but I appreciate that some other people do. But anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com where our Patreon link is, and while you're there, you can actually check out our shop. We do have t-shirts for sale, and we also have audio versions of some of our episodes in case you would just like to listen to us rather than look at us. Don't worry, I'm reasonably sure we still do permanent damage just listening to us. And of course, thank you so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that stuff. Again, the thank you part of the video, I'm always going to do it because I'm always thankful for everything. This has just been an amazing ride. I love doing this. I like knowing that you guys are finding some killer music and these collection updates and just videos in general. That's what it's all about, trying to share all the fucking kick-ass shit out there, and believe me, I'm doing my best to buy it all, too. Eventually, one of these collection updates is just be me sandwiched between piles of CDs saying, I haven't been able to move in a while. The poo bucket's full. Please send help. We're not there yet, but I'm working on getting close. But anyway, thank you so much for watching once again, and we will catch you later.